On Sunday, the 18th of August, 1991, Mikhail Gorbachev, the president of the Soviet Union, was nearing the end of his vacation at his dacha in Crimea. He was working on a speech for an important and controversial occasion that was scheduled for 2 days later, the signing of a treaty that would reform the Soviet Union and increase the sovereignty of its republics. At 4:50 in the afternoon, he was interrupted by his chief of security. 5 uninvited gentlemen had arrived from Moscow and were eager to be received. They belonged to a group of high-ranking party officials who were losing their grip on the system, probably blaming Gorbachev's perestroika. This group felt that steps had to be taken to keep the Soviet Union great, and in the process keep themselves in power. So they had started a conspiracy. One of the first things on their checklist was to send a delegation to the president for a chat. If he could be convinced to declare a state of emergency himself, then they wouldn't have to do it unlawfully. Their conversation lasted about 45 minutes, but it didn't bear any fruit. I can imagine the group might have been a bit disappointed when they set off for Moscow again, leaving the president under house arrest, isolated and lost in a state of uncertainty, in a gap created by their rather impudent interruption. The head of the KGB, Vladimir Kryushkov, who was the main driving force behind the plot, had made sure that Gorbachev was unplugged from all communication channels, except for TV. So the next day, the president was able to watch the scheduled performance of Swan Lake in a production by the Bolshoi Theatre, recorded in 1983. I don't know if he did, but technically he could have. Certainly he would have watched the bulletins that were broadcast after the coup plotters had taken control of the media. At 6 in the morning, they announced that Gorbachev had fallen ill. Therefore, a state of emergency was declared and an emergency committee was established. It had 8 members, 5 of whom appeared in a press conference that was broadcast live at around 5 in the afternoon. Most of the talking was done by Gennady Yanayev, the vice president of the Soviet Union and a bit of a weakling. He was dragged into the plot through peer pressure. But he definitely stole the show with the help of a runny nose, a handkerchief, and hands that trembled uncontrollably. Tatiana Malkina, a journalist working with the newspaper Nezavisimaya Gazeta, turned 24 that very day. She later said she was so furious she could have strangled the conspirators. But she couldn't help cracking up when a reporter from Newsweek magazine asked the opening question: "Where is Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev?" Yanayev responded that he was in Crimea, and because the reporter also wanted to know what he was sick with, he added that Gorbachev had become very tired over the past years. He went on to express his hope, and at this point he was interrupted by laughter from the room, his hope that Mikhail Sergeyevich, once recovered, would get back to work. Later on, the angry but amused young journalist took the microphone and asked whether the committee actually understood that they had carried out a coup d'etat and whether they preferred the comparison to the 1917 Bolshevik takeover or with the 1964 conspiracy against Nikita Khrushchev. Neither comparison had occurred to Yanayev. But the events of 1917 may very well have inspired someone else's reaction to the coup. I'm talking about Boris Yeltsin.